Vox Machina is the latest in the world of cartoons for adult audiences, and has a pretty unique history to how it got made. The story of Vox Machina actually started as a web series that featured several voice actors doing a Dungeons & Dragons campaign on social media outlets under the name Critical Role, with the campaign being developed by one of the voice actors in the cast. Each episode would be broadcast live on Twitch before later being uploaded to YouTube. The campaign was picked up by Wizards of the Coast, the company that owns the rights to Dungeons & Dragons, but the minds who created the campaigns actually own the intellectual property of their story. While Dungeons & Dragons does have its own various canons, they don't own the general rights to elves, dwarves, dragons, or the idea that they all may live among each other in fantasy lands. So while it's easy to think of Vox Machina as a Dungeons & Dragons show, it's technically its own intellectual property that was just licensed under Wizards of the Coast, allowing Vox Machina to be produced through other outlets such as this new show without needing the permission or help from the Dungeons & Dragons brand. Vox Machina, the animated series, wasn't picked up by Amazon Prime for production right from the get-go, and was actually started as a crowdsourcing campaign with the hope of getting just enough money to animate one episode, though the campaign would eventually go on to get enough for 10. Several distribution outlets were interested in buying the rights to Vox Machina at this point, but apparently Amazon Prime was the only one that was offering them a deal where they could maintain certain aspects of creative control. The show is for adults, complete with crude humor and sex scenes, and apparently a lot of the offers they had came from outlets that wanted to change it to be more kid-friendly, or go in some other direction with the IP. Amazon Prime let them make the show they wanted to make, at least for the most part, and gave them the budget for another 2 episodes to bring season 1 to a total of 12 episodes, and then the budget for an entire second season so they could get producing it too, all before season 1 even aired. In Dungeons & Dragons, having a diverse set of characters helps the game move along, as each species and class type all have their own strengths, so the cast of Vox Machina was designed with this in mind. The show follows this gang of misfit wannabe heroes as they try to make money being cool travelers and adventurers, but eventually come to the conclusion that they aren't any more special than any other clan out there, and that they should perhaps try to find a better way to live. They change their minds when they learn that some great evil has been massacring people, and that the royalty of the land is seeking a new group of heroes to help exterminate it. Along the way, they uncover a conspiracy involving dragons and elites, and though they are at first discouraged from slaying the dragon, they are emotionally driven to complete their mission on behalf of those who the dragon continued to kill after they had initially given up. Because of this, Vox Machina are offered the role of being protectors of the kingdom and received a comfortable home at the royal palace as long as they are willing to do what is necessary to help protect its people. This all happens in the first 2 episodes, which are a prequel to the original campaign and story explored in the first season of Critical Role. The campaign begins its story in episode 3, and as of now, that is as many episodes as have been released, but 3 episodes will be coming out each week until all 12 have aired, and the rest of the season is expected to follow the story of the first campaign, or perhaps finish it up sometime in the middle and move on to another one. The first 2 episodes introduced us to the world with a new story, giving us 2 episodes to get to know these characters, the world they live in, and to better establish what they are doing at the start of the first campaign in episode 3. Episode 3 focuses primarily on one of the characters, Percy, a gunslinger with a tragic past. The castle is holding some sort of special event, inviting elites from all over the land, including the Lord and Lady of Briarwood, who masquerade as well-meaning rulers but are clearly just evil vampire monsters that killed the people of Briarwood, including Percy's own family, sending him on a bit of a revenge mission that could end up saving the kingdom in the long run, as I doubt the Lord and Lady don't have big plans coming to the castle and using their powers to control the king. I am expecting the rest of the season to deal with this arc, which has hours and hours of content through Critical Role, with some 6-hour subplots being wrapped up in just a matter of minutes on the show, as a half-hour animated format is much more different than an ongoing campaign where each recording session lasts 5 hours or more. But it is possible they can wrap up the campaign sometime early in Season 1 and spend at least a few episodes exploring other campaigns, as there are more to get to, of course. The team is somewhat led by Vax and Vex, 2 half-elf twins, one of which is a rogue and the other a ranger. They provide the most balanced characters in the show, I would say, being the everymen that the more silly or even more serious characters like Percy can bounce off of. Percy is a gunslinger, as I mentioned, and a full human as well, with perhaps the most serious mindset in the group, particularly as they follow his traumatic backstory involving the evil Lord and Lady of Briarwood. They are joined as well by Pike, who is a gnome and a cleric, allowing the group to use a type of magic that gives us insight into the mythology and religion of the world. They also have Scanlan, another gnome, but this one is a bard, so he has magical music powers and is also a bit of a playboy. Grog is a Goliath and a barbarian, which basically just makes him the muscle of the group. There's Keyleth, another elf, but who is also a druid, giving her access to a lot of magics rooted in nature. And finally there is Trinket, who is their pet bear, who is along for the ride. Like in a real RPG campaign, such as in Dungeons & Dragons, each character brings something different between their species and skill set. A lot of any given Dungeons & Dragons campaign is about the characters trying to find a way to force the story to bend to their character's ability, suggesting that they can use a certain skill set and then rolling a die to see if they did it well enough for it to work. Like those particular games, the show focuses a lot on how these characters deal with their challenges in particular. Grog, as the strongman, is primarily responsible for leading the physical assaults on enemies, whereas Pike provides much needed healing anytime he or one of their other members gets their asses kicked. And she can even use her powers to detect what objects laying around might be infused with magic. It's really fun watching these characters get to more unique situations and seeing them delegate tasks and step up based on what they bring to the table. But we also often see the limits of each character's powers or abilities, how they fail, and how some other characters may have to fix things with their own powers in a way that they didn't think they could. While Percy seems to be getting a lot of focus as this season goes on due to the plot of the evil Lord and Lady of Briarwood being one that comes from his own childhood, they are already laying the groundwork for their other characters to have meaningful plots as well. We are presented these heroes as something of a group, but like Percy, they all have their own unique backstories. Keyleth comes from a tribe where she's going to have significant duties to live up to, and while Pike is a cleric, she's clearly struggling with her religion as we see her trying to bless the house of a family that ended up getting killed by the dragon. Vax and Vex are implied to have some tragic origins in the opening credits as well, and Vex's ability to sense dragons seems to be tied to their past. As the series progresses, I don't imagine there isn't a single character who won't have some dramatic plotline going on, and while the show is outrageously funny even when it's being crude, the show finds a great balance on where to take itself seriously. The story of Briarwood is adapted, as I mentioned, from the first Critical Role series, so anyone who wishes to spoil themselves is able to binge watch that content to see what the story may get to. But keep in mind there are a lot of differences that may be made as it gets turned into an animated series, not just for the sake of saving time, but also just because the writers may choose to do things a little differently, so we'll see how that all pans out. I'm thinking next I'll do a video breaking down the lore and history of the world within Vox Machina, so if you'd like that, leave a comment down below letting me know, and if there's enough interest, we'll go for it. Also, we're doing a live stream Q&A with the voice cast from the Netflix series Arcane tomorrow. If you want to be involved with that, I will put a link in the description down below, as well as in a pinned comment where you can get more information on how to watch, and also how to get an autographed print from your favorite voice actor.